don't disturb. Okay, come on up here and I'll show you how this works. There are two thumb drives. The EQC stands for the election qualification, and that's already been loaded into the machine. That was loaded into the machine so that we could do the test runs. You don't hit the box. Careful, would be very upset. So the other thumb drive is the DS200. So you can see both screens are sitting where they're sitting. And this is the lifetime count of the number of ballots that goes through each machine. Okay? Stick that in there. And while that's doing its thing, I'm going to do my thing, which is to show you that it's empty. So when the ballots are inserted into the tabulator, it goes through the back, the opening, I think you've seen that before, it falls down into the ballot box. Same thing here, empty. And then I have to enter a super secret code, so don't look.
I will not watch the super secret code.
So each election has its own set of codes that allows access to the machine. And once it's authenticated the code, it's going to print this configuration report, which tells you the current status of the machine. And this takes a little bit. Normally on election day, these would be closed. For this demonstration, they are open. And as you can see, it's not a very popular event. I'm not sure that it was ever a popular event. But it is done before each election.
3 times correct.
Well, this is just the public testing of the machines. We do that mock election, and then we submit the results to the website that makes them public.
The day before, or
It's the night of the election.
overnight?
Yeah, so tomorrow I have the third one. So I will enter the information and then check it against the media's access to it. So in this particular case, the voting machine has been successfully closed. To reopen and enable, press reopen the poll. But what we're going to do is you see this one has a public count of 0 and this one has a 125, which means that it wasn't cleared after the last run of ballots. And that's what I'm going to do. That one I already did. So all of these steps in looking at this is part of making sure the machines do what the machines are supposed to do. So while we're doing that, I'll just give you a brief update. All of the flat paper ballots get inserted into the lower portion of this. If we were to use the machine, the voting assistance machines, the narrower ones, which go like that. So what I do is I take out the election definition drive. Now I'll insert this one. And these stay with me. We'll power the machine on. So if you look at this, and I'll just let you look at it, it has the machine serial number, which match up. Current time, date. Says the battery's at 75%, so it's charging. It's not showing that. Modem status not detected, that's what we want. And gives you the information about what's mechanics inside, so like the scanner board, the motherboard, touchscreen, there's RAM. There's not a lot of RAM in these, to be honest with you, which is kind of surprising. And then this is the actual reading of the machine.
The fact there's not a lot of RAM in them is because of the flash drive.
No, it just doesn't need it to operate.
Okay.
These are 4 gigabyte drives. So anyway, you can just look through this. It repeats the hardware inside. It talks about the available storage. It goes over the firmware. And then the election is loaded, which tells you that I was successful in getting it to where it needs to be. Goes through the description, the date, location, the ballot information, so how it scans it and knows what to read. And then it prints the 0 tapes, the exception ballot settings, and then the ballot identification. So, we're going to clear this machine.
Secret code again.
It's another
A whole different one.
one. It is.
Yeah.
And it was incorrect. So what that did, Jim, is it wipes the machine clean. I remove the EQC and I insert the election definition stick back in the machine. And then I have to go and start over. And then you should be seeing where that public count is already at 0. Okay, so this one's at the next step already, so it's cleared the votes. Now we can open it up to accept ballots. So the report that it does is it talks, this totals are cleared. And all of these have to be saved and restored. So what it's printing right now is it'll go through each of the ballot styles. It shows that there's no information pertaining to any of the ballot styles. So it'll go through precinct 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They call this a 0 totals report. So here it detected the 125 votes. So it'll ask me to clear it, which I'll do. Clear votes and continue. That'll drop to 0. It'll print a report. going to reopen this one. And it'll print that report on this machine. Ready?
Yep.
So this is how it appears to the voter when they go to the polls at the community center. So as soon as this one's done, then we'll start running some ballots through it. For you. All right, so before we do this, I want to do a little illustration for you. This is a test ballot from 2018. This is a test ballot from June 8th of 10. There's another one from June 8th of 10. And another one non-political June 8th of 10. So for example, let's say somebody finds the ones that we discard, or we no longer have to keep them, and they choose to try and use them.
Should recognize them.
So it scans it, kicks it back, it gives an error message, beeps so that the election worker knows that the machine needs attention. Okay, so what it's saying is reverse the direction, so go ahead and flip it over, turn it in for end, it don't matter. Same thing happens, so I'm gonna go in for end. So I've inserted mine into all 4 possible ways. That's rejecting it each time. Did not grab it. So the machine has scanners both up and down, and it's not recognizing it in either way, either direction, which is exactly what we want it to do. This is not required, this is something I just do. So there's another one. So as you can tell, the public count didn't change, so it didn't register anything related to these ballots. It recognized that they were not of this election. So how does the machine know? These are called timing marks on the side. And each of them ballots, when they're produced, they have their own timing marks. And it tells the scanner in what position the ballot is to read the answer. So that's how it knows to pay attention only to this area here. And starting this year, it's going to pay attention to this box. So this box, the election stamp down there, has to have the stamp from the poll worker to be a valid ballot. If I slip one of these through there that doesn't have that, it's gonna kick it back out. So in essence, it's going to help an election night identify the ones that weren't properly stamped. So these tests from previous ones was just an illustration that it knows. If somebody were to try and replicate these ballots, they would literally have to know how the machine reads this information across, and then where on the ballot. So theoretically, it's not impossible because there's a lot of talented people out there, but it's not something you're gonna be able to do at home. So now the fun part, we're gonna feed the machines. So these are the same test deck, and I know the results to this election. These are the real candidates, the real question. We're gonna put these in. It doesn't matter what direction you put them in. Well, some of them have been folded and unfolded, and that's to simulate being stuck in an envelope and then coming back out. If you wanna fold one and unfold it, I mean, that's your deck, this is mine. The easiest way to do this is I'm gonna turn my machine this way. You can turn yours that way, you can sit down and start feeding, and I'm gonna do the same. Are we making too much noise? Okay. So an election night, we hire people.
Move this thumb drive.
Yep.
Up here a little bit out of the way.
We hire people that come in, and there's 4 people that insert the ballots into the box, into the machine. And then there's 2 judges, which is Darlene Gross Hammer, and then Ray Caffey, one from each of the 2 major political parties. And they supervise, so if a ballot has some issue that it won't be accepted, they're our resolution board. They look at it.
Will this accept the ballot upside down,
Any
way?
direction, and I would encourage you, because they should still be screwed up from when we ran them last time. Yep, you can change them any way you want. Yep. Now, the big difference between these particular machines and the ones that you might, I forgot to take the Post-it notes off, and the ones that you might see on television. Okay, so what is it telling you?
Ballot jam.
Okay, so go ahead and pull it out. Go ahead and reinsert it. Because that's the larger machines, you actually put a stack of ballots and it feeds itself. Whereas these are all hand fed. And I don't know what the threshold is for.
The screen says blank ballot. You have made no selections. Return or cast blank ballot.
Okay, so what it's telling you is that there is absolutely no marks in any of the areas that it's scanning. And so in that particular case, that's called an undervote, where the person just chose not to do it, or they came in and said, well, these aren't the people I thought I was voting for, so they just turned in a blank ballot. Go ahead and accept it. So it'll count the ballot with
Cast blank ballot.
Yep. So it'll accept the ballot, but it won't count anything.
Won't tell you.
Right. And there's supposed to be, according to statute and rule, we have to have both undervotes and overvotes to test the machine. So while this might seem pretty monotonous to some folks, that's one of the necessary things that we do. You can even try and feed 2 or more in there. It'll notice that too. So between the time that the voter, like in the precincts here in Miller, inserts their ballot into these machines, they don't get touched again until
we pull them out in this room. Now, ballots that come to us from Sunshine Bible and from Valand and Polo, they'll come in the traditional blue ballot boxes, and then the staff here pulls them from the ballot box and then feeds them into the machine. Have you tried a double yet?
Not yet. Do that now. Got one each way, so it should be able to read one on top and bottom. Wait a minute, dude. Ain't letting you do that.
Isn't that wild? I haven't quite figured out how it knows that, other than this paper has to be a specific weight.
Stack them both the same way. Nope.
Do I come in here to vote, or do I go over there to?
Next door. Put a footprint on?
Pardon?
Did you put a footprint on?
Stick them. So I wouldn't put a footprint on it.
So I don't know if you've noticed the ones that have the gold top, those are the non-political ballots, and that's to draw attention to them for the poll workers, so they don't inadvertently give somebody the wrong ballot. What number are you up to?
What do you do?
Up to 52.
What's that?
I'm at 52.
I was trying to catch up by sticking them in two at a time.
So the importance of the folding ones is that it could interfere with the timing marks. And that's why they want us to check it to make sure. So some we fold twice, some we fold 4 times, well, into quarters versus halves.
If you fold them, crease them really good.
Yep. Yep, so then when they get back here, they would try to uncrease them to go through the machine. And the primary issue that we have with the folded ones is sometimes they don't fall into the ballot box
So good.
politely.
So that ballot I just randomly creased.
Yep.
Was one of the blank ballots apparently, I think.
And it rejected it?
Well, no, it says either cast blank ballot or return. So that is in there. If I push return, will it spit it back?
Yep, go ahead. So, for example, at the 2 polls here in Miller,
It was indeed a blank ballot.
if it rejects that blank ballot, then the voter will have the option to try and re-vote that, or they can say, nope, send it through anyway. But the ones out in like Sunshine, Polo, and Valand won't have that option. Once they reach here,
So since that was indeed a blank ballot, I cast that blank ballot.
Yep. first blank ballot.
Beat that one up pretty good, so.
You did? Made it up?
Folded it, I double folded it, and then just unfolded it, stuck it in there, I didn't even straighten the pieces.
I think that's the advantage to using this heavier paper. So it's a little more robust. Now, the rules don't specify whether or not we would have to go through the whole test deck for this demonstration, but it's easier for me to compare the results if we do the whole deck.
Because you know.
I know the results.
Predetermined results,
Yep.
otherwise you're gonna have to count that.
I would have to
Half
count
in
it.
the ballot sheet. Do you run any through that you get to mark yourself?
I have. I didn't this time, but I have done that.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 years ago, I created my own test deck.
Yep.
And then I evaluated the time and investment versus the cost. So I think the other day I posted on Facebook, it was like $29 for this test deck.
Some might question the predetermined test deck, but the fact that you can count any portion of it and then hand count that portion still has verification.
Yep. So for example, if the race is too close, you know, if it was within that margin, then the recount can be a hand count. I would say probably the only glitchy part of this is if you had somebody who didn't fill in the oval sufficiently,
I was just gonna say, but it's just gonna reject them,
it rejects it.
so that we have a determination.
Yep, so like if you're at precinct 2 or 3 here in Miller, and it rejects it, then the voter would have the option of filling that in better, or spoiling the ballot, doing another one. But for the rural ones, then the resolution board actually looks at the ballot, and then they may create a replacement ballot showing the voter's intent. So we don't have the dangling chads and all that stuff. We just have a nice solid oval, a bad oval, or somebody might choose to use an X as opposed to filling in an oval. just to be sneaky. And took it.
You just have to look at that ballot and go, that person wasn't OCD enough. Is there any ballots in here that it will reject? In this stack, are there ballots that it will reject that somebody voted for too many or something?
Nope, that's called an overvote, and it will tally the overvote.
Did you receive paperwork from us?
Yes,
Did you send ballots to them?
they'll go in today's mail. Now, if there was an overvote at the polls where the machines will be located, it's gonna accept it as an overvote. So that's kind of one of the sad realities of it. 'Cause I'd have to check and see if that's an option to pick it back.
So,
But typically, that's a good question.
like in Amendment C, where there's only a yes and no and somebody colors in both of them, that's an overvote, but does it tally it one way or the other? Now you want to color one in C, don't you?
I do, but it'll change the result of my thing.
You could run another one ballot test. You know,
I
just
should.
see what it would do in that instance.
Ooh, you gotta hurry up.
Hey, my first day on the
I've
job.
got practice.
I'm guessing that I got a bigger stack anyway.
Nope, they're exactly the same. So while you're doing that, the election's over. We see our 125, and now there's a button in here called close the poll, and that's what I'm gonna push. So it says you have chosen to close the poll for this voting device to return to voting now. Don't close, keep voting, or close the poll. Okay, so now what it's gonna do is it's gonna print the ballot status report, which it did previously. And it's gonna print it again, but it's gonna show, for example, that I had 53 Republican ballots, 72 nonpartisan ballots for a total of 125, which matches my count. And then it'll give a summary of what went through for each precinct. So you can see I did 25 in precinct 2, 25 in precinct 1, 3. Got 3 voters, so you got the other part of 3.
Can you switch these sticks from one machine to the other?
Yep, that's required as well. So this printout does it by precinct. So precinct 1 is there. And it has all the candidates that are beginning of precinct 2. Now normally it prints 3 of these tapes, but I'm gonna stop it after 1. Sure.
Yep.
This voting device has been successfully closed to reopen, which I could do. I'm not. I'm gonna go ahead and shut her down.
Was indeed blank.
Okay, so now I'm gonna repower it on. Nobody's watching.
To 30 minutes every 2 to 4 years. And so everything will be okay. So when the people feeding the machines on election night, when they get that blank ballot, are they required to spit that back out and look at it and see it is verified it's a blank ballot? Blank ballot.
So what I'm doing, Jim, is I'm gonna reopen this,
Okay.
and I'm gonna go get some ballots. Oops.
Other than that, if you're in town, maybe you'll go on election
And
day.
then we are going to overvote
What's your
and
address?
see what happens.
If you're registered, yes. that's one is on that.
Now we're messing with stuff, we're gonna flow in two different directions.
Okay.
That happens.
You're
Yeah, well, we get those.
Okay, I'll be right back.
However, they get it in the envelope, I guess.
No? Oh, well, good.
Have you taken your test deck out of there?
No, okay.
Over both these? Kind of special pen?
No.
Just black pen?
Anything. Yep. Then in the upper right-hand corner, I want you to write test.
We're at, in the hand county box or
I
just,
put it up there where that gold banner is.
okay, in the gold banner?
Yep. Okay, so you got a count of 125. I'm going to close this poll. It'll start printing its thing. Right?
Oh, out of that ballot, that will get judged on the fact that I crossed, I marked
Actually,
it.
it shouldn't even look at that. It should just look at the placement.
But if that ballot were to be judged, they would say, okay, we Xed out one.
Yep.
Drew a line through it, and then check the second one, that would probably be voted. They would take out that Xed out one,
Right.
and say, make a judgment call.
Okay, so go ahead and slip it in the machine. And then this one, because that says clear.
Put it in this one?
Yep, that one's closing out. This one I set up to do these 4 ballots. Okay, go ahead and return it. Okay, so in this case, I purposely did not do this. Because I wanted to see what happens. So I'm gonna go get the stamp. Should be right there. It was the top one. Let's try to. Took it. So it should show as an overvote in our results. Going to take the next one. Should kick it back as unauthorized.
Does it actually read that stamp? Is it special?
Actually, what it does is it looks for contents in the box. So it doesn't read this, it just simply looks, there's X number of pixels that it has to detect. Okay. So far, it's recognizing no ballot stamps. So if it comes to resolution board here, those ballots would not be accounted. If it happens that the poll where the machines are, then the voter's gonna have an opportunity to revote that ballot. So the chance of the ballot slipping through without the stamp has gotten really small because of this new thing. Okay, we'll try one more. So that illustrates the importance of the ballot, the precinct people making sure these are marked properly.
So can you write something in that box?
Go ahead and hit return.
Maybe it's being slow.
Like I said, they told us it had to be a certain number of pixels that are occupied. I don't know what that would translate into with handwriting, but.
So just wrote Hand County in the box.
Okay. Took it. It was long enough. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. I'm amazed at how many things it will catch.
Like I said, I think the machine itself, the scanner aspect of it, is pretty well refined.
Yep.
So that's what takes me back to the issue of
Are we done with this one? Do you wanna?
yeah, you can go ahead and hit the button that says close poll. And
Close poll again?
Yep. What's that? Yep. Wood.
Pins,
So the official
pins
ones,
inside or?
I've pulled them. That's fine.
So that would probably be something that the people feeding ballots should probably pay just a little bit of attention to, is the stamp.
Right,
Just a
quick
quick,
something.
quick glance and make sure somebody didn't just write something in there. If that's one more level of verification.
Okay, so the day of the election, I take these, or actually it's the day before, I take these machines and I clear them out again. So it'll still have the lifetime count, it's just so it's zero count. And then the precinct workers will also look at that information and compare it to their materials. And then at the end, they'll do a ballot count on the machine, and then we do one here at the resolution board to make sure the numbers match. All right, when you're done with that, just stick it in here now, because I can mark it a particular way. So that part of our thing is done. I'm gonna shut off the, Jeff, I'm gonna shut off the YouTube. Did you get those plats, Jeff?
Yes. You on TV?